Beyond Compliance, how Salesforce builds accessibility at enterprise scale, leveraging a culture of inclusion. Speakers: Christian Birch, Director of Accessibility Programs with Salesforce. Alex Dunn, CEO of Cephalable. Moderator: Matthew Krieger, Chairman, Reader's Digest Partners for Site Foundation.
So first, I want to say thank you to Vista Center and Site Tech Global. My name is Matthew Krieger. I'm the chair of the Reader's Digest Partners for Site Foundation. We are a nonprofit grant maker that provides funding to services for blind and visually impaired people. I'm also the president of Kober. We're an industrial equipment manufacturer. I'm an advisor to several companies, including Creative Coefficient and Tech to Success. I do a lot of presenting and speaking on topics of AI and finance and technology and the intersection of all of those. Christian?
Thank you, Matthew. Hi, everybody. I'm Christian Birch. I'm Director of Accessible Technology with Salesforce. I've been with Salesforce for just coming up on 13 years, located in Portland, Oregon, where I live with my wife and two daughters. My youngest daughter is 22 years old and has Down syndrome, so I won't age myself, but for close to half of my life, I've been very dedicated to working on disability inclusion and advocacy at the government level, state, federal, local level, and been privileged enough to blend that passion with corporate America and working for Salesforce and working in a global capacity. I also am on the board of Disability in Washington State affiliate, and I very honored to be joining everybody today. Over to you, Alex.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Dunn. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Cephalable. We're an on-device AI tool that helps you control, create, and automate across all of your different apps and tools, games, and everything in between. I was originally founded out of research I was doing on creating more inputs for my youngest brother who lives at home with a disability, trying to just keep up with his friends in Minecraft and Roblox. And it evolved over time into not just how do we use our voice in games, but into how do we make the human-computer interaction sort of model and paradigm more inclusive, personalizable, and accessible. And so we do that with a lot of different AI and assistive technologies and work with partners like Salesforce and many others to continue to develop our platform and products to just help people get things done more easily throughout their day.
So today, what we're talking about is how to achieve accessibility at scale, both internally across business and employee functions and the employee base, and also externally in a company's products and services. It's generally accepted today that accessibility just makes sense, both because it's the right thing to do and economically. Accessible development, I believe we've seen this, and I believe we've seen also in the arc of general consumer technology development, that accessible development and technology benefits everyone, not just people with disabilities. Good accessibility efforts start on the inside as a core tenet, not as a bolt-on solution to products and services and practices. So internally, you have leadership acceptance, you have employee acceptance, and you have adoption throughout a company's tools and business processes and practices. And then from there, that accessibility mentality and culture can extend outward in product development and marketing and sales and support. So the first question, which I'll ask Christian, is how do you drive assistive tech at scale at Salesforce?
Matthew, I think the first thing that when we talk about scale is we need to make sure that that it's a global effort and that we're respectful of the language and probably even more so the privacy of our colleagues with disabilities that do need assistive technology. And in an effort to do that, we built a process where we have a centralized assistive tech catalog, a number of different software titles available, of which one of them is Cephalable, and so I'm very happy that Alex was able to join us today. And and it is not just assistive tech, it's productivity software like Cephalable. It's, any type of software that's going to allow any of our colleagues with disabilities to be able to come in and do their jobs with the least barriers possible. And privacy is paramount in this. That means employees don't need to go to their managers and ask for money. They don't need to go to their managers and ask for permission to use a piece of assistive technology. And in fact, if they join a webinar or a meeting, a virtual meeting, and they might be using captioning software or other software, they don't need to disclose that, right? And so we built our program around, first and foremost, the privacy of our colleagues to be able to get their assistive technology needs met with the least restrictive barriers. And cost, is always a concern when you talk about scale, because, especially in an open environment where we don't make you go get a doctor's note and go ask for an official accommodation to get a piece of productivity or assistive technology software that you need. And so, we make it available for everybody. And that what that means is we have to find a level of comfort to know that there's going to be colleagues that maybe are requesting assistive technology titles that are helping them because English is their second language even. But we don't allow those barriers that impact other people without disabilities to prevent us from providing a very wide range of assistive technology and purchasing enough licenses to meet all of those needs. And then we scale also by having webinars to actually with our assistive technology vendors. So in fact, earlier this week, Alex and I hosted a webinar for all Salesforce employees to learn about Cephalable and how it can help everybody be more productive. And in those webinars, we're doing some pretty in-depth training so that people don't ask for licenses for AT that's not going to be beneficial for them. Right? We don't want to just force a bunch of software when someone says, hey, I'm not sure really what I need. We don't want to force a bunch of software at them. And so we do some enablement to talk about what assistive technology is, what productivity software is available to them. And then we help employees tailor that for their own needs.
Super. Alex, tell us about how you and Cephalable and your products partner with Salesforce to help them achieve accessibility at scale, as well as other companies that you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've never heard of or used Cephalable, the way to think about it, and especially in this AI space, is that we're an on-device AI agent that works directly into your other applications, meaning that functionally, it's a desktop app that you install on Windows or on Mac. You can get the companion app on iOS and Android. You sign in with your account. If it's a provision license through your company, then you'll get an invitation to it and everything too, or you can just download it right from our website and get started for free. And ultimately, what it is in the world of AI is speech recognition and dictation, computer vision for detecting gestures and expressions, and then AI that runs processes to understand what applications you're in, how to control them, and then generative things to help you with writing assistance, document creation, translation across languages, and anything else directly into your own app. So it's not like a chat interface. And so not only do we have our professional apps, we also have SDKs to embed that agent into your own applications to help it make your experiences more accessible or adaptive to someone's personal preferences and needs too. So the way that we work with Salesforce is kind of on both of those fronts, where we support Salesforce employees that are looking for adaptive inputs or note-taking assistance or dictation tools, and we provide Cephalable and the means to use it to those folks in order to help them be successful in their day-to-day workflows and functions. And we're also exploring ways to integrate Cephalable into different aspects of Salesforce for their customers to be able to enhance the usability or just make it even easier for existing Cephalable users at other companies who are also Salesforce users to get more things done too. So a lot of different ways that we explore both employing or supporting the employees at companies like Salesforce, but then extending that support and adaptability into as many places as we possibly can.
Christian, from what you've learned at Salesforce, how can other companies begin these initiatives of really implementing accessibility at scale? I think for the purposes of the question, I'll make the assumption that their heads are already there. They believe, leadership believes it's the right thing to do, but now they need to take action. How should they do that?
First and foremost, hire more people with disabilities. Any of our initiatives that are meant to support colleagues with disabilities are led by the community, and that, when you only have a couple of folks with people with disabilities, it's very hard to go get executive support, right? Because unfortunately, as we all know, we often hear the question, well, how many people are we talking about? So hire more people with disabilities. Make it, that are honestly the most productive, innovative group of professionals who we work with. So hire more people with disabilities first and foremost, and then learn from the community. Join events like this with SiteTech Global. Join conferences. Join the ERGs or BRGs. Build them if you don't have them. In fact, our Office of Accessibility was created because our colleagues in our ERG for our colleagues with disabilities went to our executives and said, hey, we need a team dedicated to resolving accessibility barriers and providing us the tools that we need to be successful. So I can just come in and do my job, whether I'm a lawyer, a people leader, an executive, a tech support engineer, and build that voice. And that voice is much louder when you have many people in a large community. And so hiring more people with disabilities. So talk to your recruiting teams, talk to organizations like Inclusively, who can help source, or Making Space, who can help source colleagues and professionals with disabilities. And there's so much talent out there. And then make it a corporate priority. Not just for your employees, by the way, make it a corporate priority for your products. And if you have that as a corporate priority, which at Salesforce we do, then it kind of makes my job quite a bit easier, because everybody that I go meet with to ask to conform to what our goals are, I get to point directly to our corporate priorities around whether it's a product issue and we're dealing with a customer who's encountered a barrier, or an internal issue with an employee that's not either getting the technology they need or is encountering barriers. So those are the probably two biggest things: hire more people with disabilities, make it a priority.
Alex, I understand you lead a consortium. How do you use that? How does the consortium help achieve driving accessibility and achieving scale like we're talking about?
Yeah, so our consortium is essentially our user advisory board, and it's such a core part of our team and our organization and our product development process. Even before starting Cephabl, I come from a product development background and an engineering background. I've always believed in building with your users, because they're ultimately the ones that are using it. And if you're not doing that, then you're gonna miss at some point. You're gonna create gaps where people have expectations or goals that you're not meeting if you're not building with them. And so when we started doing the early research that led to Cephabl, we started doing that with our community of users with disabilities, starting day one with my younger brother, because that was the original thesis behind the research: was how can I make playing Minecraft easier? Start there, build for one, and extend to many. And so we've done that over the years now, as we've continued to develop Cephabl into a pretty well-oiled machine, where we work with our community partners and with some of our enterprise customers to bring people into this program that we call our consortium. And ultimately what that looks like is we get to know the individuals that before they even use Cephabl most of the time, that we want to go in and learn their lived experience, what their goals are, what challenges are that they're facing in their day-to-day, if any, where they want to see the world go and technology be. And then we start introducing Cephabl to them and start to observe how they're interacting with the world using an on-device AI agent like Cephabl, or these adaptive controls that come with it. And we bring them into then our entire product development lifecycle, from ideation to design reviews to getting daily builds of the latest versions of the platform. And ultimately, we continue to just bring people through this program in a continuous fashion. It's usually around like 50 or so people that are highly active at any given time, usually for about the first 30 days. And then we have people that stay on, and they build almost like this community within our community of users, which is really cool to see. But really, we continue to build it and try to make it as representative of our users as possible. So it's still very much primarily folks with disabilities. Some of it is now folks that are using Cephalal as like a pure productivity tool. In a more enterprise functions, we have professional esports athletes and gamers. We have folks from around the world that are a part of it. And so I think it's good product development. When you're building for as many people as possible, you need to have as much representation as possible in who you're building with as part of it too. And then that extends into our own team. Like Christian said, hire more people with disabilities. A majority of Cephalal employees identify as having a disability, and nearly 100% of employees identify as having either a disability or identify as being a neurodivergent individual. So we have to also not just represent it through these sort of programs like our consortium, but also represent it through our teams too.
So Alex, by definition, selling your product into an organization requires acceptance in that organization of either that it's the right thing to do or there's economic value. So how do you manage resistance or people who are apathetic or people who are just unaware of the opportunity? How do you bring them along, and how do you demonstrate not only inclusive, opportunity on the inclusiveness spectrum, but also economically?
Yeah, it's the hardest question that we've had to answer over the years. And what we've learned is a couple things. First is that companies that have a well-defined program around disability inclusion and accessibility, like Salesforce, have a much easier time already understanding the economic value. So then they're just mapping that sort of like, well, I get how Cephalal is a part of that equation. The math makes sense. For others, it's having to explain the productivity gains, not just for employees with disabilities, but ultimately how Cephalal can enhance and quicken things for just about anyone. Especially in a lot of these enterprises that are facing challenges in accessibility funding or disability and inclusion funding. What we're finding is we're kind of getting more success in this almost like digital curb cut, where we created Cephalal to be accessible, and now it's being adopted by just about everyone. And that is also still elevating our people with disabilities at these companies too. So even if you're bringing on Cephalal purely from the perspective of, I'm going to save every employee at my company 40 minutes a week, right? It's like a bare minimum expectation to get out of the platform. Well, that also means that I can create a more inclusive environment to hire or support more people with disabilities in that flow as well, without having to go through that traditional medical accommodation practice where someone needs a doctor's note that says this person needs Cephalal specifically. It's a tool that's there, just like how Christian and his team have sort of defined that flow at Salesforce. The second is that we're seeing a big uptick in the sort of challenge of what we call shadow AI. And I think it may have been IBM that coined the term, but it's this use of personal AI tools in the workplace, and that's breaking things like data governance and data privacy acts. Think of like someone who's working at a bank needing to get a report out really quickly. So they go to ChatGPT and ask it, but now they've given private and sensitive information to a cloud AI tool without knowing the implications of you doing that. It's sort of outside of the IT sanctioned world. Well, the big reason that happens is because companies aren't providing an accessible and internal and private tool to do the same things. And that's where we're filling a lot of those gaps too. So we're minimizing privacy leaks, we're creating opportunity for productivity gains, and we're enhancing inclusion through that entire process too. All of those end up creating some pretty significant enterprise value.
Got it. So this next question is for both Christian and Alex. How do we foster this kind of thinking among the many startups that are emerging? Again, so we have this accessibility from the ground up. Most startups don't have enough funding or mass to create dedicated departments. Can you both comment how startups can adopt this culture?
Yeah, and great question, Matthew. And not just they don't have the mass or the staffing, they don't have the knowledge often, right? And so that's why we're a big supporter of programs like Teach Access, which is encouraging universities to require and provide curriculum to universities around accessibility. We're noticing, we hire a lot of software engineers, and everybody we're hiring is coming out of college, and no one knows anything about accessibility. And startups are being built by some really talented engineer teams that also came out of university without any knowledge of accessibility. And so we want to reach the students first, right? That's for us. These startups are often recent graduates. We need to reach the universities and get them to help their students. We also have a responsibility as Salesforce, and I think this is true for any large technology corporation. We have a responsibility to help usher in this priority of making sure that technology that's being developed is accessible, and so we do that obviously by the influence we have through our Salesforce Ventures firm. So I get to work with startups in two areas: through Salesforce Ventures, and when they're looking at funding a startup, they come to us and they get our perspective. I won't name any names, but we've even had startups that came and talked to us, and we found out they were overlays, and said, "What the heck?" And so we're glad we have a partnership with our ventures team to ensure that we're investing in the right startups, but also we're using that influence to tell those startups what they need to be working on and provide them the resources to learn this. Because it's not hard, right? It's hard when you forget about it and you have to go re-engineer things, but this is easy. And to Alex's earlier point, right, it becomes a curb cut. These amazing digital experiences, when they're built very creatively with accessibility in mind, becomes better for everybody. So we have a story that we tell with that for those startups. But I also I oversee digital accessibility procurement, and we have a lot of startups that really want to sell to Salesforce and work with us. And we're never going to shut the door on the startup that isn't accessible just because they're not accessible, if they are willing to work with us and agree to our terms around accessibility, and find ways to make it accessible before it does hit our employees. In the 6 years that I've been doing this work, I've had one startup that basically told us, "Sorry, there's three of us, we're not going to be able to work on it." And I said, "Then we can't partner." And we did have to revert back to the terms and cancel the contract. But that's only one. And I would say there's probably easily, anecdotally 50 to 75 startups that we've talked to that are willing to do this work and are actually excited to learn. They haven't even thought of it. The one thing I'll always say is, other than that one startup, everybody I talk to about accessibility cares about accessibility. But the problem is, and we all know this, is it gets forgotten about, right? And so our job is to make sure that startups don't forget about it, and that it remains a priority, not just when they're working with Salesforce, but when they're pitching to other companies. And we talk to them about that. You can't pitch to Salesforce. You're not going to be able to pitch to Microsoft. You're not going to be able to pitch to Google, Amazon, which all these large technology companies have commitments to accessibility and supporting our colleagues with disabilities. So we help them grow, and we help them, and that reverberates because they're attending conferences for whatever technology they're building, and they're talking about accessibility and spreading that message. And so for us, this is a responsibility in big tech as one of the largest software manufacturers out there.
I definitely want to echo a lot of that. I think programs like Teach Access are creating that long-lasting result that we need to see in this community. Also, Procure Access, to Christian, to your point, creating a standard that more and more enterprises are saying, there's a line in the sand now that you have to meet to be accessible to work with us. Those are things that drive from one direction down onto startups, at least, in this case, startups selling B2B like we do with Stuffable. And then I think the other side is creating more positive engagements with the community. For folks who are creating companies or joining early companies that don't have a lived experience with a disability, or that don't have someone close to them with a lived experience with a disability to fully understand what that means on the inclusive design side, it's important for the folks like us that are in this community to teach people and bring them into that level of understanding in a positive way. It can definitely be hard, and I'm speaking from experience in previous startups, when an enterprise says, "Hey, there's minimum standards and good luck." And because it's not just accessibility, right? It's environmental impact, it's security and compliance, it's your SOC 2 and ISO certification expectations that a lot of new companies don't realize they have to fit into. So there's a lot of things that come down on someone to be like, that's another thing I have to check off. We have to balance that with positivity and showing the innovation that comes from our community. One of the ways that I like to do that is creating and also participating in hackathons, creating a challenge for someone to solve a problem for people with disabilities brings out innovation and inclusion in doing that. And it's also the type of spirit of an entrepreneur that I feel like comes out of those types of challenges too. Usually someone is creating a company because they see a problem that they want to have solved, not simply because they want to become rich someday, simply because mathematically you wouldn't be, right? Most startups fail. But when you create this engaging sort of opportunity to bring more people into the community and say, hey, here are problems that our community is seeing. I challenge you to solve them. You're going to get a lot of interesting products and ideas that come out of it. And you'll see this more positive interaction with the rest of our community of folks with disabilities too. And we really, really need that to balance the compliance, the standards and the certifications and the sales processes that always feel like they come with some type of negative connotation to someone who's not in the space and doesn't get it. Obviously, to folks who are, they're like, yeah, that's the standard. That is, to Christian's point, it's not that hard to do it. But if it feels like another thing on top of the infinite other responsibilities, that's where it pushes it. So I think we got to create these new fun and engaging and positive ways to get involved in accessibility and inclusive design and in supporting and building with our community of people with disabilities too.
As we get into final thoughts, I'd like to state three kind of themes that I think I'm hearing. Number one is accessibility and accessibility at scale need to be looked at really intentionally. They don't just happen. Hope won't do it. You have to really proceed with intentionality throughout the organization. Number two, accessibility, I think, is most successful when implemented from the ground up as a core tenet. I sort of draw an analogy to information security or cybersecurity. It wasn't until security in the software development industry was looked at as a core tenet that products really started to get more secure. When security is bolted on as an afterthought, when accessibility is bolted on as an afterthought, it will always be half-baked. And the third thing is that what's good for the disabled community is good for everybody. And I don't say that as some sort of feel-good statement. This is a real thing. One of the first wider spread uses, for example, of text-to-speech technology was for blind and visually impaired people. And now we see text-to-speech as a broadly consumed mode as a broadly used mode of consuming information. It benefits everybody. The other thing that is associated with that is, disabilities are not binary. It's not that you have one or don't have one. When you have somebody who's aging and you begin to lose faculties, you begin to get on the disability spectrum. So everybody benefits from accessibility enhancements. So as we wrap up, I'll ask Christian and then Alex for final thoughts.
Well, Matthew, it truly is an honor to be on this panel with you, and you summed that up very, very nicely. Thank you. I would quickly, my final thoughts are, to wrap up, my main areas is hire more people with disabilities, give them the tools to be successful and productive, and then get the heck out of their way. Over to you, Alex.
Also thank you so much for having me, and I feel like this is such an important topic for us to be talking about, because I think a lot of people face that scale challenge. And really what I see, to your point, Matthew, is when you do it intentionally, it takes a lot of intention to do it. But what I'll say is, when you do the intention once and you create those standards, including bringing in more people with disabilities on your team, creating standards and expectations and making some fun out of it, it does become easy. It does just become part of the process. And it feels like you don't have to bring as much intention all the time to it, because it's just the same intention you bring to everything else you do. And I think that's the hard part for people to kind of get to, is like, you do got to do the work. But when you do the work up front, even if it's starting now, it gets easier and easier and easier, and you start to reap the benefits of the sort of enterprise value that comes with disability inclusion and accessibility. So I guess it's just sort of like, hey, if it feels like it's daunting to get started, and maybe this is the entrepreneur in me speaking, like, someone's got to do it, right? It might as well be you that kicks it off too.
Great. Thanks to Christian from Salesforce and Alex from Cephabl, and a big thanks to Vista Center and SiteTech Global for hosting this panel.